the Leader of Majority in the National Assembly and MP for Kikuyu constituency, delayed reconstitution of the IEBC, locking the umpires over 60 billion shillings due to counties, approval of Inspector General of Police nominee Douglas Kanja, topped the agenda for MPs as they resumed sittings today. The long-awaited reconstitution of the IEBC is among their urgent business. National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula at the weekend called for the swift reconstitution of the electoral agency, saying many pending IEBC activities had stalled because of a lack of commissioners. When Kimani ICHUNG'WAH comes, we'll ask him what are the top priority agenda items in Parliament today. Nini ingine watu wanataka? Nini ingine watu wanataka? Hata ukiwa na nyoka kwa mkono.
Hata ukiangalia mlima.
Nini ingine watu wanataka? The snake catcher is here. Kimani ICHUNG'WAH, MP for Kikuyu and Leader of the Majority in the National Assembly. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you here again.
Good morning to you.
Yeah.
How are you?
Very well. How was the recess?
Recess has been quite long, about 4 weeks.
You're itching to go back to work.
Yeah, of course. Okay. We had a 4-week scheduled recess. Then we resumed today for another session before we take another short recess of 2 weeks and the final lap, and we close the year.
There's a lot in your plate.
A lot.
And we'll be talking about that shortly. But first, let me welcome you with the day's proverb. City is not in. City has taken his recess. His is a short one.
I hope it is shorter than
It's
mine.
just about 2 weeks. Okay? But he left us with the proverbs, and he told us this week, the guests who come, give them proverbs from Lydiah. So today's proverb: the small donkey is the one that everybody rides. The small donkey is the one that everybody rides. What's your interpretation of this proverb?
The small donkey is the one that everybody rides. First, it's easier to climb, has less kicks, so it gets misused. So in a situation of a workplace, is a small donkey or the small fish that get overworked.
Kabisa, eh? It's a good interpretation.
It is.
Ukiangalia kwa mlima.
Small donkeys.
Who is the small donkey that you people from the mountain are overworking?
Mwananchi, especially mkulima. That is a small donkey being overworked. Overworked in their tea farms, in their coffee farms, all over looking for pasture for their dairy cattle. But at the end of the day, the big fish walks away with all the farmer's sweat.
Yeah.
That's why you heard me say the other day, it is not fair that we campaigned on a platform of a bottom-up economic transformation agenda. And because I was a key member of the campaign team of the Kenya Kwanza team, and especially in my region, or the Mount Kenya region, we really campaigned around the issue of coffee, tea, and milk. And we made certain commitments to the people of Kenya that we will work very hard to ensure that our coffee, tea, and milk fetch the best prices that they can be. And in fact, we did even guarantee that there will be a guaranteed minimum return on many of these commodities. And you remember the president has been speaking about it and saying, especially on milk, that we have put aside money, and money was actually put aside, close to 3 billion shillings over the last 2 years, pumped into KCC to revitalize KCC and ensure that farmers are able to be paid a minimum of 50 shillings per litre, and to be paid as was stipulated in government policy after every 2 weeks. So probably on the 15th and 30th of every month, farmers should be paid. If you talk to any dairy farmer who delivers milk to KCC, they'll tell you that does not happen. Two, they are not being paid that 50 shillings. And the reason that price was being set is so that you set a price for the market. Because if KCC, being a price setter, pays 50 shillings, all other milk processors in the country would struggle to match that price. Because farmers definitely will move to the best price. They will do either 50 or better. Unfortunately, that has not happened because that money has ended up in the pockets of a very few people. The president and the government were very keen on all these coffee, milk, and tea sector reforms that under Executive Order number 1, he put the responsibility of those 3 sectors in the office of his deputy. When you speak to the industry in the coffee industry and they tell you coffee, there are people who are demanding 3 shillings per kg of coffee sold. And it's not someone who has worked in a coffee farm.
Demanding from who?
From the farmers and the people who will market the coffee.
To do what?
For what?
For their own take. And I say they have not sweated on any farm. They
Every
do not
kilo.
own an acre of coffee farms.
Who are they? Middlemen between the farmer and the potential buyer? Who are they?
Listen to me. They demand 3 shillings
Say it again.
per
slowly.
kg of coffee.
So let's start. Okay?
3 shillings per kg of coffee.
Let us start slowly.
Slowly, pole
Okay.
pole tu.
Yes. Okay? There's a man called Waitara. He's in Lydiah. He's a coffee farmer. I know him. So he harvests his coffee, takes to the local factory. So why is he losing the 3 bob? Now walk Waitara through where the 3 shillings
You
will.
take your coffee, and Waitara will not market his coffee directly. And you know that.
Yeah.
There are coffee marketers who will market the coffee. There are those who are licensed to market the coffee. Therefore, what has been happening, I'll give you the case example of Baricho, the Baricho factory cooperative society, where farmers, and these are smallholder coffee farmers, not really large scale, because most of large scale coffee farmers are able even to get their own markets. And I know, for instance, those a few in Kiambu County, where I come from, who are able to grow their coffee and are able to market it themselves directly. They're even able to mill for themselves and market directly to the buyers out there. But the smallholder coffee farmers are pooled together in cooperative societies.
Yeah.
The case you had in Madera constituency the other day is an instance where someone was brought in to buy the coffee. That person, if you listen to the farmers, they'll tell you the people who brought them to the cooperative to buy their coffee. And they were guaranteed that this person would buy their cherry at 112 shillings per kg. And the society went ahead, borrowed some money, waiting for compensation, for some compensation to get from Kenha for a meal. I think that part of their property in Kratina was to be taken away for the roadworks. When the payments came in, it was not paid at 112, it was paid at 85 shillings. To make it worse, that 85 shillings was not paid to the last coin. The 3 shillings, I'm telling you, was withheld from farmers.
So it became
82
82.
At 82 shillings. And that is why you saw the protests, farmers invading some, I think their chairman's, or one of the officials' farms and slashing his coffee. And it was not until the area member of parliament and the CS, through the intervention of the president, intervened and went and held a meeting with the farmers and were able to resolve the issue. But it had to take the government stepping in to ensure first that farmers are able to continue with their lives and get paid. And I want to believe that the CS in charge, CS Oparanya, is making effort through the ministry, the State Department of Cooperatives, to ensure that those who may have been involved in the misappropriation of coffee farmers' resources, right from the cooperative to the buyers, to those who brought the buyers to the farmers, will take responsibility for their actions.
Who are these people, Kimani?
They're in government.
What do you mean they're in government?
I mean exactly that. They're in government.
Coffee is KPCU.
And you can ask the person who is in charge of the coffee reforms. The same person, I said, you can ask them why. You saw in one of the dailies the other month news that tea worth close to 32 billion shillings, over 30 billion shillings, was rotting away in Mombasa.
So if I can open this up just a little
Why?
bit.
Because somebody had insisted that most of the tea that is being sold should go through certain brokerages. Find out who owns those brokerages.
Let me open this up. You had said very clearly that all of these operations from the coffee reforms fall under the ambit of the office of the Deputy President, right? That's clear. So it should be at that doorstep that we ask these questions of why 112 shillings per kg is not paid, and even the 85 that they were guaranteed after whatever is still not paid. So are you saying that the Deputy President and the person of Rigathi Gachagua should be able to answer why this money is not being paid to farmers, and should also be able to answer who these individuals are who are taking this extra money that should actually go to farmers? Because it was on the promise that you heavily campaigned for, that at the very least, the people at the bottom of the totem pole would get their due for the work that they did. He should be able to answer the questions as to why now those promises are not being kept?
Precisely. That's what I'm saying. The person responsible is none other than the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya.
How is he
It is not
responsible,
only in his office that this work was vested on under Executive Order number 1. But he is the one who has convened all coffee, tea, and milk sector reform meetings. He has presided over the reforms or the purported reforms in all the sectors. He should be able to answer to many of the questions that I have raised, farmers have raised. In fact, I have only spoken on behalf of farmers because they are the small donkey, you said, that everybody tends to climb on. And what I have said, that morally, ethically, I will not sit back and be quiet when the people on whose backs we rode onto power are suffering, and suffering at the expense of those who think that they are powerful. They hold big offices in this country. And that, if you remember, we spoke at length about state capture. And I said the other day, state capture can't have been wrong under the previous regime, then becomes right under this regime. Because we now hold power and we think nobody can ask anything to anyone. If nobody else will ask, I will ask. And I don't ask for myself. I'm not a coffee farmer. I only own one cow and one calf. That's doing about 32 liters in a day, which I consume with my family and my few neighbors who can be able to buy a bottle or two.
Has this always been your position? Or is there a political wrangle that's going on between certain factions at the mountain that would make you say this now?
Let me say, there are no factions on, and if they were there, I spoke about these things during the campaigns and even before the campaigns. Because for me, it basically boiled down to that state capture of an economy is evil. Because people get levers to power to be able to deliver on the promises and pledges you made to the people. When you get into power and you forget everything you promised the people, and you start doing the very same things you promised the people that you would not do, then it doesn't sit well with me. Therefore, I spoke about it before. I have spoken about it. I have raised it with the Deputy President himself and told him the coffee sector, there's grumbling. We have replaced what were called cartels with new cartels. The same with the tea sector. We are not doing what we ought to be doing. Of course, everybody plays ignorant and innocent. But far from the truth, because some of these issues are issues that are in the hands of investigative agencies. When the truth finally comes out, I think I shall stand vindicated over time. Because, I told you I'm not a coffee farmer myself. I'm not a tea farmer. My constituents are not coffee or tea farmers. At least those that I represent directly. But being a national leader and a leader in the National Assembly, and especially one who vigorously campaigned for this regime, I have a moral duty to ensure that what we promised our farmers, being the small donkeys, does happen.
When you asked the Deputy President these questions, what response did he give you?
We are working on it. I'm on top of things.
And you have reason not to believe that?
How would you be on top of things when farmers are losing money? And they're not losing money because the market is bad. They are losing money because money is ending up in people's pockets. How would it be bad when a whole entire board of KCC, and I said it the other day, took the intervention of the president to have the KCC board disbanded, fire the CEO, the former CEO at KCC, and have a new board in place? You just need to be in the know to know who were putting those people in the boards and who influenced who to be in what board. And I happen to be in the know.
So,
and Latiff, let me tell you, I never, ever say anything that I do not know. Never. And I have said it. If anybody has contrary information, bring it on.
So these duties were placed in the office of the Deputy President by the President via executive order. This is executive order number 1 of 2023?
2022.
The first one, the very first one.
The very first one.
Executive order number 1 of 2022, not 2023. I'm looking at the one for 2023. So let me go on to get the one for 2022. So in that executive order, what was the deputy supposed to do? What is the office of the Deputy President supposed to do when it comes to dairy sector, the tea sector, and the coffee sector?
Remember, the office of the Deputy President constitutionally doesn't have specific roles.
Yes.
But it was a commitment of the President way even before, during the campaigns.
Yes.
He did commit to Kenyans that his deputy will have functions. And that is why, under that executive order, certain functions in government, including the chairing of cabinet subcommittees, was delegated to the office of the Deputy President. So he chairs all cabinet subcommittees. Those who sit in cabinet will tell you. Initially, it was supposed, I think, to be 4 subcommittees, but they were later all collapsed into one subcommittee. And this is where all government business is processed. Everything that goes to cabinet first goes through that subcommittee, then goes to the main cabinet chaired by the president. And when these subcommittees were collapsed, then it happened that it's basically the entire cabinet that was sitting under the chairmanship of the deputy president, now as a subcommittee of the cabinet. Then later they would meet as an entire cabinet. And if you speak to cabinet secretaries who sit in those meetings, they will tell you many of the things processed in the subcommittees basically just come because the same group, except the president. The president will, when I ask, process through the subcommittee, yes, and they approve. Therefore, the responsibilities that were given to the office of the deputy president were deliberate, so that the deputy president is busy and in actual sense becomes the de facto principal assistant to the president to help him with the running of government, right from that business of chairing subcommittees to ensure that everything that's going through government and cabinet is approved by cabinet and subcommittees, to the functions that were given in the reform sector of the coffee, tea, and milk. And specifically, we were to ensure that the things that we promised in our manifesto, that GMR, the guaranteed minimum return, to ensure that cartels that were basically in control of the tea, milk, and coffee sectors were vanquished, not replaced, vanquished, so that the farmer gets value for their sweat. Real value of the crop gets back, or the larger percentage of it gets back to the farmer, not to cartels and middlemen in between. What we have done now is simply replace the middlemen and the cartels with those who are there, with the new ones.
So when the office of the deputy president, I'm looking at executive order number 1 of 2022, and I don't see where it specifies these particular sectors, but it says the key officers and institutions under the office of the deputy president. There's, of course, the principal administrative secretary, International Development Partnership Coordination, Nairobi Rivers Commission, the Intergovernment Budget and Economic Council, Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee, the National and County Governments Owners Advisory Committee. The mandate of the office: deputize for the president in execution of the functions, chair cabinet committees, oversee implementation of cabinet decisions across all ministries, coordinate intergovernmental relations, liaison with constitutional commissions, coordinate the planning and supervision of supervise implementation of development partners, oversee public sector reforms, and any other functions as may be assigned by the president. Which one specifically puts those three sectors?
What was the last thing you read?
Any other functions
As
may be assigned by the president.
And that is exactly what happened. That particular function was assigned to him. You saw the deputy president convene meetings in those sectors. I remember the one on coffee reforms in Meru.
Yes.
The one on tea in Kericho. I don't remember the one on milk or where, or if it was ever held. But at least those two I attended.
Okay.
I actually attended the one in Meru. And I remember that day I had a meeting in Nairobi in Parliament on House leadership. I got there late in the evening, spent the night in Meru and attended the meeting the following day, full day meeting. And many of the issues that were being raised by farmers there in terms of doing away with the cartels, actually, for me, it was a learning lesson because, as I said, I do not have any interest or I don't represent people who grow tea and coffee. So I sat there and I remember I was seated with the former Minister for Cooperatives, Honorable Chelugui, and the member for Tinderet, Meli, who happens to have coffee in his constituency. And I had a very educative and interactive session with them because I got to learn a lot of what goes on in the sector, especially during elections for these cooperative societies, how those who were called the cartels would influence even election of officials in the cooperative societies to ensure that they determine who you sell the farmers' coffee to. You know, all the shenanigans that are in that industry. And the same pervades even in the tea sector. When I attend the forum at, I think it was Kericho Golf Club, some club grounds in Kericho, on a very rainy afternoon. Same issues. And very good proposals were discussed and agreed on in all these meetings under the chairmanship of the deputy president. You probably need to visit him and ask him why these things that came out of those meetings have never been
as the coordinator of this and a chair as well of the cabinet committees, the functions have not really been brought under him. The Ministry of Agriculture is still handling matters of agriculture. Ministry of Cooperatives and MSME is still handling matters of cooperatives and MSME. KPCU and the others are still under MSME's ministry, right? So the job is to work with these ministries to ensure that what is for the benefit of farmers is realized.
And that is why, Latiff.
So is the responsibility now moving from the cooperative to the PS to the CS to the deputy president in that order? Or is the responsibility starting from the deputy president going down?
That is why, in his wisdom, and I don't speak for the president, I can only second guess, that is why in his wisdom, he placed these responsibilities in the office of the deputy president because it is something that required heavy lifting. It is something, for instance, that required interministerial cooperation between the Ministry of Agriculture on matters policy, the Ministry of MSME and Cooperatives, then under Chelugui and now under Honorable Paranya. And therefore, when you have an office where intergovernmental relations, interministerial relations can be coordinated, it is either at the presidency or probably at the Prime Cabinet Secretary's office. And in his own wisdom, the president placed it under the office of the deputy president. I cannot tell you why he did that. I can only imagine because it required heavy lifting. And two, it was also assumed you mean well for farmers. You have been in this campaign right from the word go. These are issues that touch on the people that hail from the region that we come from. And therefore, it would not be natural to assume that you will act in the best interest of the people, or whether he has acted in the best interest of the people or not. That is only the coffee farmer in Madeira who can tell you. it is a tea farmer in Kericho or in Lari, a Kagwe tea factory, who can tell you. It is a milk farmer in Kikuyu, in Nyandarua, in the north and south rift, who can tell you, all those in Meru.
And you've heard a lot of noise coming from all these farmers. And you've then gone to the deputy president and asked him, have you talked to his appointing authority? No, the person who actually assigned these roles to him. Have you asked the president?
You know, I don't supervise any of these offices.
True. You oversight.
I oversight.
Yes.
I don't supervise.
Therefore,
I'll not.
The same way you raised
definitely,
the question.
Definitely. I told you before I even spoke out in public. Call the deputy president. Ask him. Did I ever raise these issues with him? Did I not tell him things?
The question now is whether you've raised them
with
the
lot
president.
Of grumbling. I did raise it. I'll tell you, when I raised the issue of new KCC with the president, he immediately convened a meeting and was able to sort out the issue of new KCC. And you see the actions that have been taken. On coffee, I'll tell you, there was a group of farmers from Githunguri constituency who had issues with milling of their coffee. I raised it to the deputy president, nothing happened. I walked to the president, raised the issue with him. He did direct on what needed to be done to assist them, and they were assisted and they got help with their coffee. Of course, to the chagrin of many other people.
That it could actually be done.
There's no rocket science. It's doable.
Okay.
Shall we take a break? Let's take that break. Come back shortly. 24 minutes to 10. The leader of the majority in the National Assembly, who's also Member of Parliament for Kikuyu constituency, Kimani, ICHUNG'WAH, is our guest this morning. We are talking about the issues plaguing the government from Mount Kenya coming all the way up to the other government and what the issues are. He appears to be raising specific issues against a specific officer in government, this time the Deputy President, Gachagua. Is the snake biting or is it not? Is the viper still in the hand, in the arm, or is it not? Today is the 17th of September 2024. In case you thought it's 2022 or 2021, it's not 2021. It's 2024. There's a different Deputy President in office. And he seems to be facing the kind of issues that the Deputy President of 2021 was facing then from other quarters. Kimani, what's happening? Why are we back here as a country?
I don't think the Deputy President we have today is facing anything close to what the Deputy President of 2020, 2021 faced. What I see is a Deputy President who is vindictive, desperate, petty, and grossly dangerous.
Those are very many adjectives, Mheshimiwa. And one must ask that you were all together in forming this government and you all seem to be drinking from the same river. How did that change so quickly?
I've told you, men are men. Human beings are human beings. And there are people who say, give a man power and money, then his true character shows up. And I guess that is what has happened. When people got power, they got access to state resources, then their true characters came out. I don't know what you would say of a person holding high office who walks into a meeting in State Lodge, grabs by the collar a junior officer, the name of Dennis Itumbi, threatening him with physical assault within the precincts of a State Lodge on the basis that someone who had no defined role until recently, I think he would say his work is come here, go there. He's not tweeting the things you want him to tweet. Why would you, if you hold high office, be so petty and vindictive with leaders because they are not kneeling before you and hailing you as the king and the greatest of all? Why would you, for instance, be belittling your own member of parliament and telling the whole world how much dowry you paid at his wedding, how you spent your time and money, and mind you, I spent more money and more time in Kiambaa constituency, to a young man like Njuguna Kawanjiko, the member of parliament for Kiambaa. Why would you insult the lady, gracious lady who represents the people of Baringo County, and call her a prostitute? Because people have refused to sing to your tune, or because they have associated with people you do not like. Florence Jamatia was insulted because he was working at the time being with the member for Kiharu. You've heard the member for Kiambaa narrate his ordeal. And I can tell you, members of parliament, especially those from the Mount Kenya region, have harrowing stories of what they have had to go through. I said the other day, many of them shudder in fear because of this desperation and attempts to intimidate them, because you are desperate to pull people together from a region so that you may use the levers of that region and the people, one, as a shield and a mask to mask your true character, and two, to blackmail government and the president.
Are you saying none of these character traits were evident previously?
Well,
30 months ago, when all of you were, as Ndu said, drinking from the same river?
You know, I say it as it is. And that's even now, I am saying it as it is. There are things we write in books.
So it's a matter...
If you remember the events of May 15, 2022, we had almost the night of long knives at the residence of the then Deputy President Karen. And when history is written and books are written...
This is the weekend where it later emerged who the Deputy President was picking as his running mate.
There are many of us who had reservations, but we all opted after very extensive consultations to settle on a team that would help us win the election. And we raised the reservations that many of us had, and hoped that those things would be ironed out over time. And having raised the issues we raised then, that even the person himself would reflect upon himself and be more amiable in people-to-people skills. Because like the character of being too abrasive with people and other leaders and being vindictive and, that character that now has basically alienated many leaders and many people from you is something that you internalize, that this is what people have said about me, and act with grace now that you are holding high office. And be a little bit more gracious. And it did happen.
So you raised those issues.
Many of us actually bent backwards to accommodate each other. And for some time it happened until, and again I'll say this thing for the first time, until sometime towards the end of last year, when it was discovered that a lot of money had gone into waste in one office on a vote that should not have been spent in the manner that it was spent. And when the president did put a stop to it, then fights began. And I remember the fight then was coached around what would pull the people with them, and we were told it is now time to have the one man, one vote, 1 shilling. And you remember me asking, under that executive order number 1, you've heard about intergovernmental relations work, chairing IBEC, chairing cabinet subcommittees. There's something about the offices of independent constitutional commissions being vested under the office of the deputy president. And I didn't ask then, first in person, second in public, why are we now using this microphone to speak about one man, one vote, one shilling, yet we have all the levers to implement the things we are talking about. If you wanted a change in revenue sharing, even begin from the cabinet subcommittee, process it through that, take it to cabinet, let a new formula come to the Senate, agree under IBEC, as you chair IBEC, with the Council of Governors and all the other intergovernmental relations officers, agree on a proper formula that would actualize what you're talking about. But it was my position and still my position then that that was a gimmick to get the people to your side, look like the champion of the people's interests in terms of one man, one vote, one shilling. And you're not telling them the truth, that you have all the levers of power to implement this. But it's something you want to hoodwink people so that you fight for actually what you are looking for, which are basically resources and unfettered control of resources without any questions, even those that you misappropriate. Remember the cases of Air Force helicopters. And for a moment, when that comes back, you forget about the people issues because you are comfortable. If a bit of resources come your way, you forget the people issues. I mean, if we are speaking about people issues, let us, for heaven's sake, be consistent. Okay. If we spoke about a guaranteed minimum return and actual value for coffee, tea farmers, for heaven's sake, let us actualize it now.
Okay.
Let's not become the new cartels in town.
As as much as all of this is playing out, we can't run away from perception. That perception is that it is skewed heavily toward the political. What's your thought about that? That this is taking up a solid load of space, a solid load of time that could actually be used towards working on things that should really, really matter to the people of Kenya?
I think, I'll tell you, it's true. It takes a lot of time and energy. And that is why, for instance, we as the people's representatives purposed not to get distracted. Focus on that which we ought to be focusing on and on delivery. Ensuring that, for instance, you remember, and we can only learn from history. This is the second deputy president under the current constitution. The president was the first deputy president under this new constitution. We saw when William Ruto was deputy president, we saw him on your TV station here on KTN, Citizen TV, NTV, almost all our national TV stations. Articulate government policy, defend and inform Kenyans on what government was doing. And he became like the official spokesperson of government under the Uhuru Kenyatta regime right from 2013. You remember, hardly would President Uhuru Kenyatta, probably he would do 1 or 2 interviews in a year on national TV. But the person who was on the ground on TV stations and media everywhere, every day, was the then deputy president, articulating government policy, informing Kenya what government is doing. We have a situation where now we have a deputy president who has never patronized a single national TV station to articulate government policy. He has never been anywhere to defend any government policy, articulate what government was doing, inform Kenyans. The only time my good friend has been on TV or radio is vernacular radio stations and vernacular TV, not articulating what you are doing as government, but whining and crying about this or that. That's personal. And when we realize that as elected leaders, we said, fine, we can choose to take this route, then we end up doing what you're saying. We end up consuming a lot of our time on political issues, on whining of an individual, on my dissatisfaction with this or that. But what about the dissatisfaction of Kenyans, of the people who elected us? And that's why we say, let us focus on the disaffection of Kenyans, focus on those issues, and find alternative ways and means of resolving those issues. And for instance, that's what we did last week when we asked the cabinet secretary in charge of national coordination in the national government to help us in the coordination of our projects in our region, even as he does his work in coordinating national government projects across the nation, so that we have a focal point and a link between us and the executive to actualize the promises and the pledges we made to the Kenyan people. It is not a fact that we can run away from, that there are many stalled projects across the country, some that stalled way back as 2016, 2017. If we had that focal point, for instance, I would have expected that the Deputy President, being able to chair the Cabinet Subcommittee, would be at the forefront of ensuring that all these stalled projects are actually, you're able to even pool resources to get them moving. And that has not happened. I would have wished that that would have been our focal point of rolling out development projects.
I'm confused sometimes, Kimani, because on one hand, I hear you many times saying, when you talk about regional politics, that's parochial, that's tribal, that's just demagoguery. But on the other hand, you're among the leaders who are sitting in a meeting and appointing somebody to be like the spokesperson and the coordinator of the region.
Let me say this.
Same parochial and tribal and regional is the same thing you're practicing.
Let me say this. We represent people. People who have issues. I represent the people of Kikuyu first and foremost before even I am the leader of majority in the National Assembly. I have a national duty as a leader of majority in the National Assembly. And I will not belittle my office now as majority leader to be a focal point of Kikuyu politics, for instance. But when I work as a member of parliament for Kikuyu, I pursue the interests of the people of Kikuyu as their member of parliament. And therefore, when leaders come together from a region to pursue the interests of their people, especially around development projects, there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. How I wish.
But that's exactly what the Deputy President has been talking about.
Latiff. How I wish the Deputy President has ever convened a single meeting of leaders from any corner of this republic, because as Deputy President, you can convene leaders from Western Kenya, from the Mount Kenya region, even per county, to dwell on issues, development, and people-centric issues. On the other hand, we have been told on the microphone, it is either by December you are following me, or these members of parliament will go home. It is not, it is either by December you have come to sit with us to look at the people-centric issues of your stalled road projects, be it the Mau Mau roads or other areas like my constituency where we don't have Mau Mau roads. Whether we are coming together to look at the coffee, tea, and milk sector reforms.
Yeah.
How I wish that is what we are doing. And that is why we said, as our region's leaders, we have the people's interest at heart. Therefore, let us not be carried away by the clamor to have regional parties, regional kingpins, people who you mobilize around for politics' sake. But let us focus on the job. And that's what I even said yesterday. We are focused on the job. I'll tell you, for instance,
so making Professor Kithure Kindiki your coordinator is not political or regional.
If you listened or if you read our statement, we said we want him to be the focal point and link between us and the executive on the coordination of projects, development issues, not for political work. If you listened,
it's euphemisms, Kimani. We are in this country.
If you saw what has happened in the recent past, I was telling you some of the roads that had stalled. that the president was able to get money for. And we said it in Nyandarua the other day, in Daragwa, that out of close to the 40 billion shillings that the president was able to get, about 3.537 billion was going to Nyandarua County to unlock 2 major roads in Daragwa, others in Kinangop and parts, I think, of Ol Kalau. Yesterday, we were with David Chirchir, the Minister for Transport, and Professor Kindiki in Kiambaa constituency to unlock the roads that were being done in Steko in Kiambaa constituency, parts of Kabete and parts of Limuru, a total of 90 kilometers of roads. If we are able to focus on the job that way, then we will deliver to our people.
Okay.
And once you deliver, then the issues of 2027 will be sorted based on the work that you do, not based on whether you are kneeling before a man or you are following a man, but on the basis of whether, as a member of parliament, you have been able to articulate the issues of your people, taken them to the executive implemented projects that change the lives of the people.
Let me ask the question and let me see if I'm getting it right. Because of, the kind of focus that the Deputy President has had, he has been unable to deliver on the core mandate that has been assigned to him. And that has left people in the dairy sector, the tea sector, the coffee sector, for example, complaining and feeling the promise of the Kenya Kwanza administration is not being delivered. Am I correct? Yes, no?
To an extent, you are correct and on point. And not just that, Latiff. I said, even in the being able to articulate and push government agenda.
Okay.
That office should be the focal point, as we saw in the past.
Okay.
Be there, articulate what is it that government is doing. I hardly ever hear my good friend ever speak anything to do with the development of the people. And I stand vindicated, Latiff, if you would play for me one clip where my good friend, the Deputy President, is articulating government policy anywhere. Get me a clip where he is speaking to the stalled projects anywhere in the country, or explaining what the new higher education funding model or the social health insurance fund is about, articulating issues to do with the growth of enterprise. And for instance, when I came here last time, and I think I was on KTN, and I tried in a way to explain to Kenyans some of the issues that were being raised in the finance bill, especially around the manufacturing sector. I mean, in this regime, unless the president is speaking, nobody else
comes. So where does this leave the president with all this? Where is the president when his deputy, as you say, appears not to be in touch with the people, appears not to be working to deliver on the promises of the people? Where is the president?
The president is left overworked, and because the buck stops at his desk, then every other finger is pointed at the president. But we all have a responsibility as leaders to offload some of these things from the president and help him to actualize on what we promised the people of Kenya.
What action is he taking to speak to his friend? Because he has told us many times, the president, that the deputy is his friend. He picked Rigathi Gachagua as his running mate because of very many qualities that he saw in the man.
I don't know.
Today, what's the president doing?
I don't know what I would tell you, because that question, I think, would be better answered by the president, the deputy president themselves, not me.
As a member of the team, as a senior member of the team, that, crafted the campaign, crafted the messaging, crafted this government, you say you have raised it with the deputy president, you have raised it with the president. What have you told the president to do?
We told him we want to focus on the job and for him to be able to help us on delivery, especially of the issues around development, the stalled projects that were there, in our constituencies, various constituencies. We have a whole retinue of roads that members of parliament in the region have processed through the member for ICHUNG'WAH and the document shared with the ministry under the directives of the president. When, for instance, I told you we raised the issue of milk farmers not being able to get what the president has been saying, he intervened. And you've seen him intervene also, for instance, on that case in Madeira on coffee. And we've asked the president to just focus on the job.
Okay.
And not allow himself to get distracted. We have also purpose not to get distracted. And that is why you've heard many of us say the things we are saying, because if, for instance, and I say this, many members of parliament would get intimidated. Many would shudder and run in fear when you are told, oh, people are being mobilized on social media and vernacular stations to bash you every day. But Latiff, I went through this in 2018.
Many times.
To 2022.
We've got to
all vernacular stations were mobilized against us, and specifically me. It did not cow me. Bloggers on social media, I don't think there's anyone who has ever been bashed the way I've been bashed on social media.
We've got to end it here. It's 3 minutes after 10, so we've run over by about 4 minutes. One final question. If a motion was brought before the leadership of parliament today to impeach Rigathi Gachagua, as one who sits in the House Business Committee, how would you vote? If you went onto the floor of the House, how would you vote?
It would depend on the reasons that would come in that motion. Don't ask me to speculate, because it hasn't come. When and if it ever comes, I make decisions based on facts before me.
Would you initiate one?
I have never feared, Latiff, to speak my mind. I will speak my mind. It doesn't matter who you mobilize. It doesn't matter how many insults you peddle on social media or try to sell fear by mobilizing a few people to shout here and there. Those are tactics in politics that we are used to. 10, 13 years into this game, we know all these things and we know how to handle them, and we'll handle them. Therefore, if it comes, we will handle it as it comes.
We ended there. Kimani ICHUNG'WAH, Member of Parliament for Kikuyu, Leader of the Majority in the National Assembly, has been our guest. Yes, the Deputy President deserves and has the right of reply, and we are extending an invitation to him as well. He has a lot to say, and we hope that he can come here and say it. It's 5 minutes after 10.
Please invite him.
Yes,
please invite him, or ask him to appear on the vernacular stations, and you can also appear.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.